and good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted for your invitation. Let me answer your question. Indeed, and we saw that in Andreas's presentation, it's not just a matter of spending more money, but to know on what basis we do that, how we do it, with what quality criteria we distribute the money in particular. Now, recovery plan investment is one of the dimensions. It's rather difficult for us at this stage to compare countries because we have the overall amounts, but we don't yet have a complete vision, at least as far as I'm concerned, as to how that money is spent in each country. If I take the case of France, I would distinguish between several sorts of expenditure. First of all, the expenditure in our first recovery plan, that concerned a lot of buildings. And you know that recovery plan was oriented a lot toward protecting the environment. So that's a recovery plan that would help schools, middle schools, high schools to have, first of all, the thermal, the renovation. So therefore, a lot of the classrooms were rebuilt, as well as the digital equipment. So therefore, the recovery plan, 100 billion euros for the first part, is a recovery plan that will have an impact on school buildings and on digital technology, but it also gives us an opportunity to think over the nature, the quality aspects of classrooms and building quality in general. Then we have an investment plan, which was just presented by our president, 30 billion euros, called France 2030. You referred to that a bit earlier, that concerns higher education to a great extent and research, but also the school system indirectly, because that plan, well, it has different thematic areas, such as the sea, which would be an incentive to the school system. For example, we're going to build high schools of the sea in France, in all of the coastal departments and overseas territories. And then there's money that we allot under the 2022 budget, but also the 2021 budget, and which is a way of achieving recovery, because there were budgetary increases that were greater under the ordinary budget in 2021 and in 2022 than in the previous years.
13%.
So that was approximately a 13% increase at the beginning of the president's terms of office. Now, this is a direct way to increase teachers' salaries. This is important, particularly for young teachers, because OECD studies show that we have work to do in that area, particularly for teachers at the beginning of their careers and in the middle of their careers. So this additional money will be used to achieve a goal that we have and already had in spite of the pandemic. That is, we wanted to make the teaching profession more attractive. In a more general way, then, our recovery plan, I'm not going to go into too much detail, also aims to address structural questions which we would have had to have addressed even without the epidemic. So I think it's important to stress that. Now, in the light of the presentation that was made just now, I'd also say that our new spending is also based on assessments of what we're told by our education system and by the studies we have done on that education system. Since 2017, we've done some assessments of our students at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of primary school at age 6, and then again at age 7, and again at age 11. The aim is to check their skills in languages or in French and in maths. This was particularly important at the beginning of the pandemic because it allowed us to see the progress made by students. So, for example, when they first began learning to read and write in September 2019, we were able to assess their level very carefully. And then again in 2020, just before the lockdown, and then again when they were age 7. So we were able to evaluate students at 3 different stages. And through doing that, we were able to evaluate the impact of the lockdown and of the pandemic, therefore, and also to assess the impact of the investments that we'd made. So we were able in that way to check that the level then improved with those investments, and that was indeed the case. So this is really consistent with what was said before. Assessment of students is very important, Likewise, we are investing most of the new investment in primary education, so in primary education, but particularly in underprivileged areas. So that's really focusing on the root of the problem and targeting inequalities in particular. For me, that's a real priority. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we are therefore coming to the end of today, which has been a very important event dedicated to education here at UNESCO. And the education sector is currently being severely affected by the current crisis. Therefore, we wished to wish all of you, those who are present and those who are following us across the world online, we wished, whether you are actors in whatever capacity, we wanted to let you know how important we think education is. And we have seen through the various declarations, and as Ms. Giannini has just said, there is an important budgetary need. Taxation is an important issue. We've heard that from experts, from the President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron. It is clear for all of us, as we have heard, that it is important to mobilize resources at all levels so that education is considered as an investment, a social investment, but also an economic investment, because our future economies will grow from education, health, and the environment. These will be motors for a new economic paradigm. We need to take action now. We need to adopt here in Paris, on this special occasion, a declaration that is honourable, but also that commits us. This is a challenge. We need to ensure that our schools remain open in spite of the challenges. The idea of open schools is something important for the pandemic, but also the idea of open schools for the future, so that all children have access to education and so that no child is left behind. All teachers must have the resources they need to ensure that they can teach. In all human societies, the teaching of children is essential. We need effective public educational policies. We need to ensure that we can assess our students appropriately. It's very important that the budget is sufficient. By taking this commitment here in Paris, the capital of education, with UNESCO, we are taking an important step. We are, of course, working with the OECD and the Partnership for Education. And with all other actors, let us commit to multilateralism to find solutions. That is a term used by Emmanuel Macron just now. Let us commit ourselves to education, which the crisis has demonstrated is extremely important. Let's ensure that we have the teachers we need, the schools that we need, because schools are important for our children. Our students need schools. No machine, no computer can replace a classroom. Even though, of course, digital technology is important. Let us commit ourselves to the future and to youth and give our young people all the resources they needed to succeed in the future. We're entering a highly technological era in which we need also humanity. We need to ensure that the human dimension is not neglected. For that, we need teachers and instructors. That is essential. I would therefore ask my fellow ministers to support us to this end. Let's support the Paris Declaration. Thank you.